Jake Morrison pulled his jacket closer as the wind howled through the Montana mountains. Snow fell so hard he could barely see 10 feet ahead. He had been searching for 3 hours now, following the emergency signal his radio had picked up earlier that morning. Should have stayed in bed, he muttered to himself. But Jake knew he couldn't ignore a distress call. As a search and rescue worker, saving people was his job, even in weather like this. The signal led him higher up the mountain, through thick pine trees covered in snow. His boots crunched with each step. The cold bit at his face, but he kept going. Someone was out here, and they needed help. Then he saw it. A strange metal object stuck between 2 large rocks. It looked like no aircraft Jake had ever seen. The metal was smooth and silver, with curved edges that seemed impossible to make. Blue lights flickered weakly along its sides. "What the hell?" Jake whispered. He approached carefully. The object was about the size of a small car but shaped like a teardrop. One side had been torn open, probably from the crash. Jake peered inside and his heart nearly stopped. A girl lay unconscious in what looked like a pilot seat, but this wasn't any normal girl. Her skin was blue, not blue from cold, but actually blue, like the color of a clear sky. Her hair was white as snow and seemed to shimmer even in the dim light. Jake stood frozen for a moment. This had to be some kind of joke. People didn't have blue skin, but as he looked closer, he could see she was breathing, barely. Her chest rose and fell, in shallow breaths. Blood, which was surprisingly red like human blood, trickled from a cut on her forehead. "Doesn't matter what you are," Jake said out loud. "You're hurt, and that's all I need to know." He climbed into the strange craft and carefully lifted the girl. She was lighter than he expected, maybe 90 pounds. Her clothes were made of some material he didn't recognize, soft but strong. As he carried her out of the wreckage, she made a small sound, like she was trying to speak. The storm was getting worse. Jake knew he had to get her to shelter fast, or they would both freeze to death. His cabin was still 2 miles away through the forest. He adjusted his grip on the girl and started walking. The journey back felt like forever. Wind and snow attacked them from all sides. Jake's arms ached from carrying her, but he didn't stop. Several times he almost fell on the icy ground, but he managed to keep his balance and protect her from hitting the rocks. When he finally reached his cabin, Jake was exhausted. He kicked open the door and carried the girl inside. The warmth hit his face like a wall. He laid her gently on his couch and turned up the heat. Now he could see her better in the light. She looked young, maybe 16 or 17. Her blue skin was smooth and perfect without any blemishes. Her white hair fell past her shoulders. She was definitely not human, but she was also definitely alive and needed help. Jake found his first aid kit and cleaned the cut on her head. Her blood was red, just like his, which seemed strange given everything else about her. He wrapped a bandage around the wound and covered her with warm blankets. For the next hour, he watched her carefully. Her breathing got stronger. Her color, though still blue, seemed healthier. Jake made hot soup and coffee, not sure what else to do. He had no idea how to help an alien, if that's what she was. As night fell, the girl's eyes opened. They were a bright purple color, unlike anything Jake had ever seen. She looked around the cabin with confusion and fear. When she saw Jake, she tried to sit up quickly but winced in pain. "Easy there," Jake said softly, moving slowly so he wouldn't scare her. "You're safe. You were in some kind of accident." The girl stared at him and said something in a language that sounded like music. Her voice was soft and pretty, but Jake couldn't understand a single word. "I don't know what you're saying," Jake said, pointing to himself. "Jake, my name is Jake." The girl tilted her head, studying him. She pointed to herself and said something that sounded like Zara. "Zara," Jake repeated. "Is that your name?" She nodded and smiled a little. It was the first time she had looked anything other than scared. Over the next few days, Jake took care of Zara while the storm raged outside. He gave her food and water, changed her bandages, and tried to communicate with her. She was incredibly smart and picked up English words fast. Within a week, she could say simple things like thank you and food and cold. Jake learned that Zara was definitely not from Earth. She seemed amazed by the simplest things like how his wood stove worked or why he kept food in a cold box. But she also understood complicated things about his radio and electronics that Jake himself didn't know. Sometimes at night, Zara would look out the window at the stars and say things in her own language that sounded sad. Jake wished he could understand what she was thinking about. "Where are you from?" he asked her one evening as they sat by the fire. Zara pointed up at the sky and said something long in her language. Then she tried in English. "Far, very far. Family, gone." Jake's heart hurt for her. Whatever had happened to bring her here, she had lost everything. He put a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You're safe here," he told her. "I promise." Zara looked at him with those strange purple eyes and smiled. For the first time since finding her, Jake thought she might actually believe him. Jake Morrison stood on his porch, coffee mug in hand, watching the sunrise over the Montana mountains. 10 years had passed since that strange winter when he found the blue-skinned girl. Sometimes he wondered if it had all been a dream. The only proof was the small blue crystal pendant Zara had given him before she left, which he still wore around his neck. Life had gone back to normal. Jake worked as a park ranger now, protecting the same mountains where he had found her. He never married, never had kids. Something about those few weeks with Zara had changed him. He felt like he was waiting for something, though he didn't know what. The morning started like any other. Jake was planning to check the hiking trails when his radio crackled to life. "Jake, you need to turn on the news right now." His supervisor's voice was shaky. "Something big is happening." Jake hurried inside and switched on his television. Every channel showed the same thing. Massive ships hung in the sky over major cities around the world. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow. Everywhere had them. The ships were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. They looked like they were made of silver and gold, with smooth curves and glowing blue lights. "This is not a drill," the news reporter said, her voice tight with fear. "We are experiencing what appears to be first contact with an alien civilization." The ships appeared simultaneously over population centers worldwide approximately 30 minutes ago. Jake's coffee mug slipped from his hands and shattered on the floor. His heart pounded as he stared at the ships on screen. They looked similar to the small craft he had found Zara in, but much, much bigger. The reporter continued, "The ships have made no aggressive moves, but they are clearly far beyond our technology. Military leaders are asking everyone to remain calm while they assess the situation." Then something happened that made Jake's blood run cold. The largest ship, hovering over Washington, D.C., began broadcasting a message. The voice was clear and spoke perfect English. "People of Earth, we come in peace. We seek one person among you, Jake Morrison of Montana. No harm will come to your world or your people. We simply wish to speak with Jake Morrison." Jake fell into his chair. The whole world was looking for him. His phone started ringing immediately. First his supervisor, then reporters who had somehow gotten his number, then government officials. Jake turned off his phone and sat in stunned silence. Within hours, black cars arrived at his cabin. Men in suits got out, followed by people in military uniforms. Jake had been expecting this. He opened his door before they could knock. "I'm Jake Morrison," he said simply. "Sir, we need you to come with us immediately," said a woman who introduced herself as Agent Lisa Brown. "The president wants to speak with you." The next few hours were a blur. Jake was flown to Washington, D.C. on a military jet. Officials asked him hundreds of questions about how he knew aliens, but Jake could only tell them about Zara. Most of them didn't believe him until he showed them the blue crystal pendant. "You're telling us that 10 years ago you found an alien girl in a crashed ship and took care of her?" asked General Carl Miller. "Yes, sir. Her name was Zara. She was hurt and scared. I helped her get better, and then she left." "And you never saw her again?" "No, sir. But she said she would never forget what I did for her." The officials looked at each other with worry. Jake could see they were all terrified. The most powerful military in the world was helpless against these ships. "Mr. Morrison," said the president, when Jake finally met him. The fate of our planet might depend on this meeting. These beings specifically asked for you. Do you have any idea what they want? No, sir, Jake said honestly. But Zara was kind. If she's with them, I don't think. They want to hurt us. They brought Jake to a landing area outside the city. The alien ship that came down was smaller than the others, but still huge. It was beautiful, with golden decorations and blue lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. When it landed, a ramp extended from its bottom. Figures began walking down the ramp. They were tall and wore elaborate robes in colors Jake had never seen before. Some looked almost human, others were clearly alien. But they all moved with dignity and grace. Then Jake saw her. Zara walked down the ramp, but she was nothing like the scared girl he remembered. She was taller now, graceful and confident. She wore robes of deep blue and silver, and a crown that seemed to be made of light itself. Her blue skin seemed to glow softly, and her white hair flowed behind her like water. But her eyes were the same, those bright purple eyes that had looked at him with trust and gratitude 10 years ago. Jake, she said, and her voice carried clearly across the distance between them. Jake stepped forward, ignoring the dozens of weapons pointed at the aliens. Zara, is that really you? She smiled, and for a moment she looked like the young girl he had cared for. Hello, my friend. I told you I would never forget your kindness. The officials around Jake were whispering urgently, but he barely heard them. He walked toward Zara, and she met him halfway. You look different, Jake said, not sure what else to say. I am different, Zara replied. I am Empress Zarathul now, ruler of the Axiom Coalition. I command 47 star systems and hundreds of worlds. Jake's mouth fell open. The scared, hurt girl he had found was now an empress? That's incredible, Zara. None of it would have been possible without you, she said seriously. You saved my life, Jake. But more than that, you showed me what true kindness looks like. You asked for nothing in return when you helped me. That lesson shaped everything I became. She gestured to her companions. These are my advisors and guards. They represent many different species from across the galaxy. All of them know the story of the human who saved their empress. Jake felt overwhelmed. Why are you here? I mean, I'm happy to see you, but I'm here to repay my debt, Zara said, and to offer humanity something that has never been offered to a species so young. I want to invite Earth to join the Axiom Coalition as a protected member world. The government officials behind Jake started talking excitedly, but Zara raised her hand for silence. This is not a decision for your leaders alone, she said, looking directly at Jake. I trust your judgment, my friend. You saved me when I had nothing to offer in return. Now I ask you, should humanity join the galaxy? Jake found himself aboard Zara's ship, staring out at Earth from space for the first time in his life. The blue planet looked small and beautiful against the black of space. It was hard to believe that just yesterday he had been a simple park ranger, and now he was discussing the future of humanity with an alien empress. The ship was amazing. The walls seemed to be made of some kind of living metal that glowed softly. Everything was curved and smooth, with no sharp edges anywhere. Jake had never seen anything so beautiful. It's a lot to take in, Zara said, walking up beside him. She had changed out of her formal robes and now wore simpler clothes, though they were still made of materials Jake didn't recognize. She looked more like the girl he remembered. I still can't believe it's you, Jake said. When you left that night, I thought I'd never see you again. Zara's expression grew sad. I wasn't sure I would survive long enough to return. Jake, there are things about that time that I never told you. Things I couldn't tell you because I was too scared and my English wasn't good enough. She led him to a comfortable room with soft chairs and a large window. When they sat down, Zara began to speak. I wasn't just any alien girl who crashed on your planet, she said. I was the crown princess of the Axiom Empire. My father was Emperor Thulvar, ruler of 30 systems. My mother was Empress Kiranel, known throughout the galaxy for her wisdom. Jake listened in amazement as Zara told her story. There was a revolution, she continued. A group of military leaders called the Iron Council decided that my family was too soft, too kind to our subjects. They believed that only fear and strength could hold an empire together. They attacked our palace in the middle of the night. Zara's voice became quiet. They killed my parents first, then my brothers. I only escaped because my bodyguard, Captain Rexstar, got me to an escape pod. He died protecting me, but not before he programmed the pod to jump to a random star system. He said it was the only way to make sure they couldn't track me. Your ship ended up at Earth completely by accident, Jake realized. Yes, the pod was damaged in the jump. It crash-landed on your mountain, and I thought I was going to die there, alone, and far from home. Zara looked at Jake with those purple eyes. Then you found me. I just did what anyone would do, Jake said. No, Zara said firmly. That's what I learned during my time with you. Most people wouldn't have helped a strange alien girl. They would have been afraid, or they would have wanted something in return, but you just cared. You asked for nothing. You gave me food, warmth, safety, and kindness when I had lost everything. She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. When I left Earth, I spent years hiding, building support, gathering allies. I learned about different species across the galaxy. I discovered that most civilizations rule through fear or greed or force, but I remembered how you treated me, and I realized there was another way. What do you mean? Jake asked. I built my power differently than others. Instead of conquering worlds, I liberated them. Instead of taking their resources, I helped them grow stronger. Instead of ruling through fear, I led through service. Zara turned back to him. Every decision I made, I asked myself, what would Jake do? Jake felt overwhelmed. I'm just one person. I can't have made that much difference. You saved more than my life that winter, Jake. You saved my soul. When I finally reclaimed my throne, I did it with an army of freed slaves and oppressed peoples who joined me because they wanted to, not because they had to. The Axiom Coalition isn't an empire anymore. It's an alliance of free worlds working together. Zara showed Jake images on a strange screen that appeared in the air. He saw beautiful cities on distant planets, space stations as big as moons, and beings of dozens of different species all living and working together. This is what your kindness built, she said. A galaxy where the strong protect the weak instead of enslaving them. But then Zara's expression grew serious. However, not everyone agrees with our way of doing things. The Iron Council that killed my family joined with other military groups. They call themselves the Hegemony now, and they control about a third of the galaxy. They believe that might makes right, that the strong should rule over the weak. They don't like what you've built, Jake guessed. They hate it. They see our democracy and our protection of smaller species as weakness. They've been testing our borders for years, looking for a chance to attack. Zara sat back down next to Jake. That's why I'm here. Earth is in a very important location, right between Coalition space and Hegemony territory. If we can bring humanity into the Coalition, it will strengthen our position greatly, but that puts Earth in danger, Jake said. Earth is already in danger, Zara replied sadly. The Hegemony will eventually come this way whether you join us or not. But if you're part of the Coalition, we'll defend you with everything we have. Jake thought about this. What do humans bring to the table? We're so far behind you technologically. Zara smiled. You underestimate your species, my friend. In all my travels across the galaxy, I've learned that humans have something very rare: adaptability. Most species are good at one or two things. Humans seem to be decent at everything. You're not the strongest or the smartest or the fastest, but you can learn and change and grow in ways that amaze other species. She called up another image. For example, we've been studying your internet, your entertainment, your art. The way humans tell stories and express emotions is unlike anything we've seen. Most alien species think in very logical, organized ways. Humans think creatively, chaotically, in ways that solve problems others can't even see. You really think we can help? Jake asked. I know you can. But Jake, there's something else you need to understand, Many humans won't want to join the galaxy. They'll be afraid of losing their independence. And many of my own people question whether humanity is ready for this responsibility. As if summoned by her words, a tall alien with silver skin entered the room. He wore military-style clothing and had 4 arms. His expression was not friendly. "Empress," he said, bowing slightly. "This is General Kexval, my military advisor," Zara explained to Jake. "Kexval, this is Jake Morrison." The general looked at Jake with obvious skepticism. "So this is the human who supposedly changed the fate of the galaxy by showing basic kindness. He seems very ordinary." "Sometimes ordinary people do extraordinary things," Zara replied calmly. "Jake, General Kexval has concerns about bringing humanity into the coalition so quickly. The humans have been fighting wars among themselves for their entire history," the general said. "They have nuclear weapons pointed at each other. They destroy their own planet's environment. How can we trust them with galactic technology and responsibility?" Jake felt angry but tried to stay calm. "We're not perfect, but we're trying to get better, and we don't give up easily." "Kexval raises valid points," Zara said diplomatically. "But he also doesn't see what I see in humanity. Jake, I need you to help me show the galaxy what humans are truly capable of." Jake had been living on Zara's ship for 2 weeks, learning about galactic politics and technology when the attack came. He was in the middle of a lesson about coalition trade routes when alarms started blaring throughout the ship. "Empress," General Kexval's voice came over the communication system. "Hegemony forces have launched surprise attacks on 3 coalition worlds. They're also moving ships toward Earth." Zara's face went pale. She ran to the command center with Jake close behind. The room was filled with screens showing star maps and battle reports. Dozens of alien officers were working frantically at control stations. "Report," Zara commanded as she took her place at the center console. "Hegemony General Vextar has struck simultaneously at Kepler 442, Wolf 1061, and Proxima Centauri," an officer reported. "The attacks appear designed to test our response time and commitment to defending new members." Jake watched the screens in horror. He could see flashes of light that represented space battles happening light years away. Real people were fighting and dying because of decisions he had helped make. "And Earth?" Zara asked. "A hegemony fleet of 30 ships is 6 hours out from Earth," Kexval reported grimly. "They're not trying to hide their approach. This is clearly a message." Jake felt sick. "They're attacking Earth because of me, aren't they? Because I convinced people to join the coalition?" "No," Zara said firmly. "They're attacking because they fear what humanity represents. They can't allow the galaxy to see that there's an alternative to ruling through fear." General Kexval stepped forward. "Empress, we have difficult choices to make. We can defend all 3 coalition worlds and Earth, but it will spread our forces thin. Some advisors suggest we should focus on our established members and let Earth fend for itself until later." Jake's heart sank, but Zara's expression grew hard. "Absolutely not. We defend all our allies equally, or we defend none of them. Send half our fleet to the coalition worlds and half to Earth." "Empress," Kexval argued, "Earth has no defenses. The humans have primitive weapons that won't even scratch hegemony ships. We'll be protecting a world that can't protect itself." "Then, we'll teach them," Zara said. She turned to Jake. "Your people are about to face their first real test as members of the galactic community. Are they ready?" Jake thought about humanity, stubborn, proud, and refusing to give up even when facing impossible odds. "They'll fight. Humans always fight when someone threatens their home." "Good. Because I have an idea, but it's dangerous and it requires human volunteers." Zara explained her plan. The hegemony ships were powerful but relied on long-range weapons and energy shields. However, their ships had one weakness. They weren't designed to deal with small, fast attackers who could get inside their shield perimeters. "Human fighter pilots," Jake said, understanding immediately. "You want to give humans ships that can get close to the hegemony vessels." "Exactly. Coalition fighters are designed for our pilots, who think logically and follow precise patterns. But human pilots think creatively. They take risks that others wouldn't even consider. They might be able to do things that surprise the hegemony. Within hours, Jake found himself back on Earth, but this time in a massive military base. World leaders had gathered to coordinate the defense of their planet. The scene was chaos. Generals shouting orders, scientists trying to understand alien technology, and politicians arguing about what to do. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jake addressed the room, with Zara standing beside him. "The hegemony fleet will be here in 4 hours. Empress Zarathul has brought coalition fighters that human pilots can learn to operate." "Learn to operate in 4 hours?" asked Air Force General Patricia Stone. "That's impossible. The ships are designed to interface directly with the pilot's brain," Zara explained. "Once connected, the ship becomes an extension of the pilot's body, but it requires pilots who can think quickly and adapt to new situations." "I'll do it," said Colonel Ryan Mitchell, one of the best fighter pilots in the world. "If these things can save Earth, count me in." Within an hour, 12 of Earth's best pilots were learning to fly alien fighters. Jake watched as they struggled, with the mental connection at first, then gradually began to understand how the ships worked. "This is incredible," Colonel Mitchell reported over the radio. "I can feel the ship's systems like they're part of my own body. The responsiveness is amazing, but learning to fly was only half the battle. The pilots also had to understand hegemony tactics and weaknesses. Zara's military advisors worked frantically to teach them everything they could in the remaining time. Hegemony. Ships are heavily armored on the front and sides," explained Admiral Thexacor, a coalition military expert. "But their engines and weapon systems are more vulnerable from behind and below. If you can get inside their shield radius and attack from close range, you might be able to disable them." "Might?" asked Colonel Mitchell. "No one has ever tried this before," the Admiral admitted. "Hegemony ships are designed to fight other large vessels. Small fighter attacks are theoretical." Jake felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. These pilots were risking their lives based on his recommendation to join the coalition. If the plan failed, Earth would be defenseless. "You don't have to do this," he told Colonel Mitchell privately. "This isn't your war." The pilot smiled grimly. "With respect, sir, the moment they pointed guns at Earth, it became our war. Besides, I've always wanted to see what I could do with alien technology." The hegemony fleet arrived exactly on schedule. 30 massive ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. Each ship was 3 times larger than anything humans had ever built, bristling with weapons that could destroy cities. Leading the fleet was General Vextar's flagship, a monstrous vessel covered in spikes and angular armor that looked like it was designed to inspire fear. "People of Earth," Vextar's message was broadcast across all communication channels. "You have made the mistake of allying yourselves with the weak Axiom Coalition. Surrender now, and we will allow your world to serve the hegemony. Resist, and we will show you what happens to those who oppose us." Jake stood in the command center watching the enemy fleet approach. Beside him, Zara looked calm, but he could see the tension in her shoulders. "Coalition fleet is in position," reported Admiral Kaelin, commanding the coalition ships defending Earth. 20 vessels against 30. The odds are not favorable. "Remember," Zara said into her communicator, "we're not trying to defeat them completely. We just need to show them that attacking coalition worlds has consequences." The battle began. When the hegemony fleet opened fire on the coalition defenders, space lit up with energy beams and explosions. Jake watched the tactical display, seeing friendly ships taking damage and returning fire. "Human fighters, you are cleared for attack run," Admiral Kaelin reported. "Good luck." 12 tiny ships launched from Earth, piloted by humans who had been flying alien technology for less than 4 hours. Jake held his breath as he watched them race toward the enemy fleet. "This is Colonel Mitchell," came the voice over the radio. "We're going in. For Earth." The human fighters moved like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. They flew in patterns that seemed random but were actually carefully coordinated. They slipped between energy beams, rolled around incoming missiles, and dove through gaps in the enemy formation that other pilots would never have attempted. "Impossible," General Kexvol muttered, watching the display. "How are they flying like that?" Because they're human, Jake said with growing pride. They don't know it's supposed to. Be impossible. The first human fighter reached a hegemony ship and disappeared underneath its hull. Seconds later, explosions erupted from the enemy vessel's engine section. The massive ship began to drift, powerless. One down, Colonel Mitchell reported. These things have glass jaws if you know where to hit them. More human fighters reached their targets. They flew patterns that confused the hegemony gunners, attacking from angles that the alien ships weren't designed to defend against. Within minutes, 5 hegemony vessels had been disabled or destroyed. General Vextar's voice roared over the communication channels. What are these creatures? How do they fly like that? They're humans, Zara responded calmly. And this is what happens when you threaten their home. 1 year after the battle for Earth, Jake Morrison stood in his new office overlooking the construction of humanity's first space station. The massive structure was being built in orbit around Earth, a joint project between human engineers and coalition scientists. Ships from dozens of different worlds came and went daily, making Earth one of the busiest ports in the galaxy. Jake still couldn't believe how much had changed. The battle against the hegemony had ended with General Vextar retreating after losing half his fleet. The human fighter pilots had proven that creativity and courage could overcome superior technology. More importantly, they had shown the galaxy that the coalition's way of doing things, protecting each other instead of conquering, actually worked. Ambassador Morrison, said his assistant, a young woman named Helen Carter who had learned to speak 3 alien languages in the past year. Empress Zarathul's ship is requesting permission to land. Jake smiled. He had been expecting this visit. Tell her she's always welcome here. Jake walked to the landing pad where Zara's personal ship was touching down. It was smaller than her, military vessels but just as beautiful, with flowing lines and blue lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. When the ramp lowered, Zara stepped out wearing simple traveling clothes instead of her formal Empress robes. Hello, old friend, she said, embracing Jake warmly. Hello yourself, Your Imperial Majesty, Jake replied with a grin. Just Zara when it's the two of us, she said, just like she always did. They walked through the space station together, past laboratories where human and alien scientists worked side by side, past training centers where coalition officers learned, from human military tactics and past cultural centers where beings from across the galaxy shared art, music, and stories. I have news from the Galactic Council, Zara said as they reached Jake's office. The vote was unanimous. Humanity has been granted full membership in the coalition, not just protected status. Jake felt a surge of pride. That's incredible. A year ago, most people didn't even know aliens existed. Your species continues to amaze everyone, Zara said. Do you know that 17 worlds have requested human advisors to help them reorganize their governments? And the Centauri Republic wants to hire human pilots to train their military. I heard about that. Colonel Mitchell is considering taking the job after he retires from Earth's Defense Force. Jake poured them both coffee, a drink that had become surprisingly popular among several alien species. What about the hegemony? Are they still causing trouble? Zara's expression grew more serious. General Vexatar was removed from command after his defeat here. The hegemony is still hostile, but they're being more careful now. They learned that attacking coalition worlds has real consequences. She walked to the window, looking out at Earth below. More importantly, 12 more worlds have joined the coalition in the past year. Your victory here showed them that there's an alternative to living in fear. Jake joined her at the window. It's strange to think that saving one scared girl in a snowstorm led to all this. That's the thing about kindness, Zara said softly. You never know how far it will spread. Every person you help might go on to help others. Every act of compassion creates ripples that travel farther than you can imagine. She reached into her robes and pulled out a small object. It was the blue crystal pendant Jake had given her 10 years ago, but now it was set into an elaborate crown made of metals from dozens of different worlds. I had this made, she said. It's the new crown of the coalition. Every time I wear it, I remember what you taught me. That true strength comes from protecting others, not from conquering them. Jake was deeply moved. Zara, I just did what felt right. You're the one who built something amazing. We built it together, she corrected. You, me, and thousands of others who chose to believe that the galaxy could be better than it was. They spent the afternoon catching up on everything that had happened. Zara told him about new worlds joining the coalition, about scientific discoveries being shared freely between species, and about the democracy that was slowly spreading across the galaxy. Jake told her about Earth's integration into galactic society, about the challenges and the successes. There's something else I want to show you, Zara said as evening approached. She led him to the observation deck where they could see the stars clearly. Computer, display coalition territory, she said. A holographic map appeared in the air showing a three-dimensional view of the galaxy. Thousands of stars were marked in blue, representing coalition worlds. Jake could see that they formed a network of light stretching across space, connected by trade routes and mutual defense agreements. When I first became Empress, we controlled 47 systems, Zara said. Now we have over 200, not through conquest but through invitation. Species are choosing to join us because they want to be part of something better. Jake stared at the map in wonder. It's beautiful, and it all started with one human who decided to help a stranger in need. Zara smiled at him. Jake, I have one more thing to ask of you. Anything. The coalition needs experienced ambassadors, people who understand both human nature and galactic politics. Would you consider becoming our primary ambassador to new species? You'd travel to worlds that are considering joining us and help them understand what the coalition represents. Jake thought about this. It would mean leaving Earth for long periods, visiting strange new worlds, meeting beings he couldn't even imagine. It would also mean carrying on the work he and Zara had started, spreading the idea that different species could work together in peace. I'd be honored, he said. As they watched the stars together, Jake reflected on how much his life had changed. He had gone from being a simple search and rescue worker to becoming one of the most important diplomats in the galaxy. But in many ways, the job was the same, helping people who needed it. Do you ever regret it? Zara asked quietly. Your old life was simpler. You could have just let me die in that crashed ship and none of this would have happened. Jake considered. This seriously. No, he said finally, I can't regret saving someone's life. And look what came from it. Earth is part of something bigger now. Humanity has a future among the stars. Countless beings across the galaxy are living better lives because you built something based on kindness instead of fear. He paused, watching. A ship from the Vega system docked with the station. Besides, I learned something important from all this. We're all connected, even across vast distances and between different species. What we do matters, sometimes in ways we never expect. Zara nodded. My father used to say that the galaxy is like a web. Touch one strand, and the vibrations travel everywhere. As night fell over Earth, Jake and Zara stood together looking out at the stars that no longer seemed cold and distant. They were warm points of light representing worlds where beings were, choosing cooperation over conflict, where the strong were protecting the weak, where different species were working together to build something better. Thank you, Jake, Zara said. For everything. Thank you, Zara, for showing me that small acts of kindness can change the universe. 6 months later, Jake was aboard a coalition exploration ship, traveling to a distant star system where a new species had requested contact. As he prepared for first contact with beings humanity had never encountered before, he touched the small blue crystal pendant that Zara had given him, his own reminder of where it all began. Through the viewport, he could see Earth in the distance, no longer alone in the darkness, but connected to a vast network of civilizations that stretched across the galaxy. Ships moved between the stars carrying not weapons or conquerors, but teachers, healers, artists, and diplomats. Jake smiled as he prepared for another first contact mission. Somewhere out there among the stars, another scared being might need help. Another act of kindness might start another chain of events that would make the galaxy a little bit better. The universe was full of possibilities, and Jake Morrison, former park ranger turned galactic ambassador, was ready to meet them all.